American President Donald Trump promised Russian dictator Vladimir Putin he would put pressure on Ukraine and Europe so that they would agree to capitulate to the Russian Federation. This conclusion can be drawn from the words of Ushakov, Putin's aide, after Vladimir Putin had a phone call with Donald Trump today. And Trump allegedly promised him he would do this very soon at the G7 summit on Tuesday and Wednesday in France. Allegedly, Trump promises to really put pressure on Ukraine and Europe so that they will be more accommodating. It became known that Putin complained to Donald Trump again today, poured his heart out to him, and said that Ukraine is allegedly striking peaceful military factories and civilian ammunition depots in Russia again. In addition, before talking to Putin, Trump also spoke with Zelensky, and Zelensky simply noted that there are certain ideas regarding establishing peace in Russia's war against Ukraine. Well, it is already known that on Tuesday and Wednesday, both Trump and Zelensky will be together at the G7 summit in Paris. And there, an in-person meeting between them may possibly take place. But what is already definitely known is that the G7 leaders will discuss with Trump the conditions for peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. And it's obvious that this phone call between Trump and Zelensky and Trump and Putin was a preparatory stage so that there would be something to discuss with the European leaders. And unfortunately, Trump can really start pushing Moscow's rhetoric again now. It's obvious that Putin once again told him how Ukraine is bombing Russia, complained again. And knowing Trump's rhetoric, we could end up with a pretty bad outcome. So, let's discuss this topic, this conversation between Trump and Putin, and what will happen next. My name is Alexei Pechi, let's talk about this together. But before we start, as usual, I ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, give it a like, and leave any detailed comment under this episode. This will really help promote the content on YouTube, and I will be very grateful to you for that. So, today on his 80th birthday, Donald Trump turns 80 years old. The American president had a phone call with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the Russian bold dictator Vladimir Putin. Let me start with the information that is known about the conversation between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, and then we'll move on to the conversation between Trump and Putin. Zelensky confirmed that he did indeed have a phone conversation today with the US leader Donald Trump. He stated that he congratulated his American counterpart on his birthday and added that among the topics of the conversation was peace in Ukraine. Quote, "I wished President Trump success, first and foremost in his efforts to end Russia's war against Ukraine. I also thanked him for all the support that America provides to Ukraine. And it's important that we gratefully remember every step of this support, from javelins to patriots." According to Zelensky, he talked with Trump about what could help bring peace closer right now. He informed the American leader about the latest events on the battlefield and about how Ukraine's position has strengthened. Zelensky added that he agreed with Trump to discuss the details during a meeting at the G7 summit in France. This is very important because earlier some media outlets had already claimed that an in-person meeting between Trump and Zelensky at the G7 summit was not planned, although that would have looked extremely strange. And now Zelensky says, "We have several good ideas that can help bring peace closer and protect lives." And I'll add here that just weeks earlier, Zelensky specifically met in London with the European trio, that's Macron, Starmer and Merz, in order to discuss a common European negotiating position with the Russians. It's clear this topic will be discussed with Trump at the G7. Well, judging by the photo published by Zelensky during the conversation, the head of the president's office, Kirill Budanov, was also present, and his first deputy, Sergei Kyslytsya. And right after Trump finished his conversation with Zelensky, he called the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. This was stated today by the assistant to the president of the Russian Federation, Yuri Ushakov. According to Ushakov, the conversation lasted 55 minutes and was friendly and candid. Putin congratulated Trump on his 80th birthday. After that, the interlocutors discussed international politics. In particular, issues related to the upcoming peace treaty between the US and Iran were discussed. And according to Ushakov, Trump said that the results of the negotiations could be announced today, although what business does some dictator like Putin have with what's going on there anyway? It is also noted that Trump emphasized the need to end the war in Ukraine. In response, Vladimir Putin stated that the recent strikes by the Ukrainian armed forces on civilian targets in Russia allegedly hinder a peaceful settlement. Well, I would like to point out that Ukraine is striking oil refineries, ammunition depots, and military and security forces on Russian territory. And just last night in the Yaroslavl region, there was also a strike on fuel tanks that supply the occupiers' army. Ushakov assured that such strikes from Ukraine will never change the situation on the battlefield. He says we don't care, but they're complaining to Trump again for some reason. Again, this little bald dwarf is calling Trump and whining to him, saying, look, the Ukrainians are bombing us from all sides again. According to Ushakov, Putin once again repeated to Trump a clearly unacceptable proposal. And he says, if Zelensky wants a meeting, let him come to Moscow. My God, when will these Russians finally realize that Putin is a coward who just wets himself, afraid to leave his bunker? There was already an open letter from Volodymyr Zelensky to Putin, and he said, let's set a date, a place, and finally meet already. Stop wetting yourself. What are you afraid of? Come on already, old man. Get out of your bunker. Let's meet. Name the place, name the time. Let's meet on neutral ground and talk. Putin said, I don't see the point. Now this jerk is dodging again, saying, well, of course there is a point, but let Zelensky come to Moscow. As I already said, Zelensky's open letter also had a certain message, and it's obvious that Zelensky will now show Trump at the G7 summit in Paris like, look, I clearly offered to meet him. This bald freak, it's not even a person, it's just some kind of creature. It publicly said at the Economic Forum in St. Petersburg, I don't want to meet in person. Putin said, I don't see the point of meeting in person or negotiations. We will keep fighting. That's it, it's clearly recorded. And then, as Ushakov claims, the American president, during a phone conversation, expressed his willingness to influence Kyiv and the US's European allies on the issue of a peaceful settlement. And according to Ushakov, during the conversation with Trump, Putin for some reason stated that Zelensky, who is Jewish and has Jewish roots, should not forget about the Holocaust. That's interesting. So was that a hint? Is that a hint that Russians are ready to exterminate Ukrainians just like the Nazis exterminated Jews during World War II? Or what is it? What kind of hint was that? Well, in addition, during the conversation, the parties agreed that the U.S. President's special envoys, Stephen Witkoff and Jared Kushner, would again and once again will go to Moscow for negotiations with that bald freak Vladimir Putin. By the way, this duo never made it to Kyiv. Why send them again? It's unknown. That is, Trump doesn't learn any lessons at all. This is yet another attempt to buy time. So, after these two phone conversations between Donald Trump and Zelensky and Putin, it became known that at the G7 summit, which will take place from June 15 to 17 in Evian, France, European leaders will discuss with US President Donald Trump the conditions for peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. In particular, it has been stated that now a window of opportunity for diplomacy may be opening since Ukraine is in a position of strength and Russia cannot win militarily, its economy is experiencing difficulties. In addition, there is talk in Europe that European leaders, during their meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky in London earlier this month, discussed the issue of peace talks, and now all of this needs to be coordinated with Trump. In addition, it is noted that most likely in the event of real peace negotiations, the format will be Ukraine, Russia, the US, and Europe. That is a four-party negotiation format because, well, the Russians obviously threaten not only Ukraine but also Europe. So for now, it's unclear who exactly will represent Europe. The way I see it, it will be the European Troika, Merz, Macron, and Starmer, but maybe not. So for now they're handling it, but the Russians insist that they want one person who will speak on behalf of all of Europe. Also, again, we need to understand that it's unlikely there will be an agreement between the G7 countries and Ukraine regarding the new peace talks initiative. So right now, this is a kind of transitional stage, and as we can see, Putin is once again trying to drag out this whole process. He says, send Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to me. I'll feed those fools a bunch of nonsense again, tell them how I'm ready for negotiations, but when Zelensky directly tells me, let's meet, of course I'll chicken out and say, no, 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 I don't see the point. That's the kind of conversation he has. And it's obvious that Europe is now trying to seize the initiative and especially trying to somehow influence Donald Trump. But how Donald Trump will behave is still unclear. It's obvious that Trump is still influenced by this Russian propaganda, and as you can see, the 80-year-old geezer listens carefully to what another old man, Vladimir Putin, tells him. And Putin says that Ukraine is attacking poor, innocent, holy Russia. You see, he says drones and missiles are flying again over Russian cities and hitting oil refineries. Like, what's going on here? But again, Putin says there's nothing to worry about. The question is, if nothing serious is happening, why are you whining? Why are you whining? Why are you always complaining? These Russians are like that. They look tough, they shout like, I'm so brave and fierce, but as soon as they get slapped for the first time, they immediately start whining, crying and saying, how can this be? What, did someone hit me or what? Ugh, it's just disgusting. I'll leave it there. Share your thoughts and conclusions in the comments. I love it. Now the Russians will show up, all cleaned up, and start writing nonsense. Be sure to read the comments. You'll get a good laugh. Laughing at them is practically a sacred duty. Oh, subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and hit the bell so you get notifications about new episodes. And if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video or with the QR code on your screens. That's all. Take care of yourselves. Bye everyone. Subtitles.